Hello and welcome back to another episode of From Prison to the Streets. I'm Eric. I did 11 years in prison and I talk about prison stuff. Today we're doing another Q&A. I'm going to answer some of you guys' questions, and I'm also going to share some cool stuff with you guys that some subscribers and fellow YouTubers have sent me, given me, etc. And so should be a pretty fun time. Like and subscribe and let's get into the video. The most common question that I've been getting lately has been, how are you doing? Are you okay? How are you feeling? Because I've had a pretty rough infection for months. I've been in and out of the hospital. I had to have surgery. It's just not been very fun. I guess I'll address that first. I'm still sick, to make a long story short. And I'm not exactly sure why. We have figured out that the reason why my immune system was so severely compromised was I had a vitamin deficiency. My vitamin D was very, very low, and so was my zinc was very low. So they have me on some pretty high doses of vitamin D and zinc to help get that back to where it should be. However, they're not exactly sure what caused the infection. They don't have a clear understanding of what's going on. They're sending me from one specialist to the next, and I'm still having really high fevers, a lot of fatigue, throwing up. I got stuff that looks like raw hamburger coming out of my nose basically some days, and blood, and, pretty nasty stuff. And it's concerning. I've had really bad headaches, a lot of stiffness in my neck. I still have a really bad rash. And, it's taxing. It's physically taxing. I feel exhausted a lot and don't really want to get out of bed. My body's going through some stuff. So, that's how I'm doing physically. However, throughout all that, I've been trying to eat better. I've been losing weight. I've been working out again and trying to get myself healthier, taking care of the basics. If you take care of your body is better equipped to take care of you. And, I'm just trying to take care of myself, to get myself back on my feet. And I'm trying to keep a positive mindset. Although that's pretty hard to do sometimes when you've been sick for a long time. It's pretty easy to get down in the dumps and start feeling negative. And I have those days, but I'm trying to push forward and I'm trying to keep a good attitude about things. So that's where I'm at. And as far as, am I going to keep making videos? Am I back to putting out regular content? I'm going to try to do one video a week. I was doing 3 videos a week. That was my regular schedule, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But I think I'm just going to focus on one long video a week on Fridays. And if I'm feeling up to it, I'm going to also put out one short video here and there during the week if I can. But yeah, I'm going to try to put out regular content on a regular schedule, even if it is just once a week. Now that I have addressed those questions, I would like to answer some more questions. And I'm going to start out with questions that were left on my last Q&A video. And Mike the Psych asked me if I still read books. And if so, what do I read nowadays? Thank you for the question. Yes, I still read books. However, I don't read as much as I used to, and I don't read as much as I want to, but I still read. And right now what I'm reading is this book. And this is a book that I had in prison. This is The Golden Dawn by Israel Regardie, or Israel Regardie, however you want to pronounce his name. I've heard it pronounced both ways. But that's what I'm reading right now. I'm actually going back over the introduction. It's got like a lengthy introduction. I think this one is the 6th edition. So you basically get the introduction of all the preceding editions. And just in the introduction of this book, there's some really interesting stuff. But this is kind of a cool thing. I got this while I was in prison. This is a book that I read a lot, and I still have my property receipt. I don't think you guys can probably see that, but still got the property receipt taped in there from when I was in prison. I did that so the officers wouldn't try to take my book. Sometimes officers will see a book and they'll say, oh, well, that was a chaplaincy book or something like that, and they'll try to confiscate it. And I didn't want that to happen. So I actually had the property officer sign me a receipt, and I taped it in that book so no one would ever take it from me. But yeah, that book's been with me for many years, continues to be with me, and I continue to read it. That's what I'm reading right now. But I can't mention books without mentioning another book. Infinidon by M.C. Lorbecki. On this channel, I have spoken about the Deadly Tarantula Girl channel a few times. JD and Marita have a really cool channel where they basically handle exotic animals or reptiles and spiders and creepy crawlies and things like that. They have a really cool channel and they're very knowledgeable in what they do. And Marita wrote this book, and she included me in part of the editorial process, I guess you could say. She wanted me to read over it and give her my opinion. And yeah, really cool. They wrote me a nice little message in here. I really appreciate that. But this is a fantastic book. I will put a link to it in the description if you guys are interested. It's kind of like a sci-fi fantasy thriller all wrapped into one. And it's very well researched, very well written, and it really shows. It's just really good storytelling. I've read a lot of books. I read a lot of books while I was in prison. When I was out of prison, before I got locked up, I was an avid reader, and I continue to be an avid reader. And I really enjoyed this. So thank you, Marita, for sending me this, and thank you, Mike, for your question. But yeah, if any of you guys get a chance to have a look at this, either if you can get it in your local library or buy a copy, I really recommend this book to anyone who's, into fiction and just enjoys good storytelling. The next question I want to answer is from Doc Galt, and Doc was asking about gangs. He said, "Hey, Eric, that was a great Q&A. I appreciate your insight. One thing that has kind of confused me has been how do prisoners stay out of gangs? I think I mentioned it before, but I've never been a prisoner, so I don't have any experience. Maybe this is just Hollywood sensationalism, but the impression that I get from documentaries and different films is that if you're not in a gang in prison, you're a target. The impression that I get from you is that it is possible to not be in a gang. Did you have any issues with that or with the prison politics as far as day-to-day life? The other thing that I have heard is that usually gangs are divided amongst race. How does that work if you don't really believe in any racist ideology? Is it something you have to do?" There are many parts to that question, so I'll try to address them in a clear and concise manner. Prison cultures vary from state to state or region to region in the United States. In some areas, in some prison systems, you might have to join a gang to survive. That is a reality of some prison systems. However, in the Kansas prison system where I did my time, that was not something that was necessary. You don't have to necessarily join a gang to survive in prison. I have butted heads with gang members several times. When I first went to prison, I had problems with some Ossetrues, and it's kind of weird because by the time I left prison, I was a friend of the call-out. And that's a video that I need to do something on, whether Ossetru and Odinism, is that a religion or is it a prison gang or what? Because people have also asked me questions about that. But in prison, sometimes they do run it very much like a gang. And, but I'll get into that another time. So I've had problems with people who are gang members, but it was never a thing where they were trying to pressure me into joining a gang, or they threatened me and said, "Hey, if you don't join this gang, we're going to take you off the yard." There was never anything like that. I actually joined a criminal organization, and I always call it a criminal organization, even though it was actually a gang, because it wasn't originally intended to be a gang. Once again, that's another completely different story, but I didn't have to join. I joined more or less because I was trying to keep an eye on a friend of mine who had joined up, and I wanted to make sure he wasn't getting himself involved in some stuff that he couldn't get himself out of. I was trying to make sure he wasn't in over his head. He was a childhood friend of mine. Once again, though, it wasn't something that I was forced into. As far as a racist ideology goes, you know, a lot of these gangs, especially white gangs, they use a racist ideology to recruit people, or they portray that it's some sort of racist motivation behind their gang. But gangs exist primarily for the purpose to make money. A lot of them start out to protect people. You know, guys will band together in prison for protection. However, usually it ends up being about money. You know, it's about running different hustles, different rackets, whether it's gambling, extortion, contraband, moving drugs, whatever. At the end of the day, it's about making money, not so much racist ideology. And I've even seen white gangs with members who are black or Hispanic or Native American, whatever. And, you know, it's kind of a wishy-washy thing because they portray one thing, they claim to be about one thing, but you'll see the dude with the swastika on his chest and spouting Nazi propaganda sitting down at a table at lunchtime with a black guy chopping it up like it ain't nothing. And the reason why they do that is it's not actually about a racist ideology, it's about making money. That's, you know, or protection, one of the two. But usually those guys aren't super racist. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. You usually have a few that are really racist, but most of the dudes are just, well, they're not bad dudes per se, but they're just criminals, you know. I hope that answers your question, you know, sufficiently. Thank you for the question. WGW 1991 says, "Hey Swanee, did you successfully quit smoking?" No, I did not. And I say that because it's been an off and on thing. I'll quit for a couple weeks, a month, 2 months, something like that, and then I'll go back to it when I get stressed out or something like that. Hopefully, I'm back on my way to being where I need to be. Usually when I get off nicotine, I step it down little by little and then move on to nothing. I actually use vape pens or something like that to step down the nicotine, and then I'll use a larger box mod that contains 0 nicotine after that to get over the oral fixation, and then gradually that goes away and I just move into full exercise mode, because that's what I used to do when I got stressed out. You know, I would do push-ups or sit-ups or squats or something, and that's how I dealt with my stress and frustration and anger and all that stuff when I was in prison. Was mostly just through exercise or some sort of creative outlet like music. And I'm trying to get back there, and I think I'm going to be successful this time. We'll see. But thank you for the question. And I do want to mention, I thought it was cool you said, "Hey Swanee," you know, it's been a long time since people called me Swanee. When I was a kid growing up, when I was a teenager and stuff, sometimes people used to call me Swanee, and Swanee was actually my dad's nickname. And people used to call me Swan, and they'd call him Swanee. But thought it was cool because it had been a little while since anyone called me that. But thank you again for the question. And one left me a question a month ago and said, "Is that a BJJ gi hanging behind you?" Yeah, I used to have a martial arts uniform hanging behind me when I was shooting my videos in a different room in my house. And it's actually a Taekwondo uniform. It's not a BJJ gi, which I need to get a Jiu-Jitsu gi proper because they have thicker seams and stuff. They're not as prone to tearing when you're rolling on the mat and stuff. And I would like to get one, but I've been practicing Jiu-Jitsu in some form or another since I was 10 years old. And I started practicing Taekwondo in 2018. Always been big into martial arts. I really enjoy it. And, you know, it's good for you, I think. So, you know, preparedness never hurt anyone. But thank you for the question. And that, I think, is the end of our questions. I really thought that I had more questions than that, but You know, that's it for the questions. So let's move on to the next part of the video. I wanted to take a minute in this part of the video to give a shout out and a special thanks to Randy from Here on Mars. He has a really cool YouTube channel and he makes music. And he gave me a copy of this CD that he put together. Some really good music on there, and also a cassette. It's Apocalyptic Electro Rock, which is very much a mouthful. And I don't actually know where I put the cover for the cassette, because I've had the cassette just sitting in my tape deck because, you know, I'm a 90s kid and I have stuff like that. But it's really good music. Some of it sounds very reminiscent to Mastodon from the album Crack the Sky. That was a really good album. I really like that one. So a lot of his music is you know, right up my alley. I really like it. But I wanted to say thank you for Randy for hooking me up with that and going to lunch with me a couple times. Randy's bought me lunch a couple times now. YouTube has such a really cool community, man. When we get together, it's, I don't know. There's just something really cool about YouTube. We can meet each other and hang out, and even hang out in the comments and just have really cool interactions. And I really appreciate all you guys who come by my channel and watch my videos. And you're a part of the channel. You're as much a part of the channel as I am. And I really appreciate you guys. But definitely, I will leave a link to Randy's channel in the description. So if you guys want to head over there and check out some of his music, some of the stuff that he has going on, it's really cool. And I think you should check it out. I think Randy and I are going to do some stuff on some music pretty soon and get some collabs going, you know what I mean? And before I end the video, I also want to talk about some of the other projects I have going on. I told you guys that I've been working on my house and getting this studio set up and things of that nature. But I'm also starting a podcast. I would like to have more long-form content in an audio format. It's a little bit easier to do sometimes, and it's not as highly censored as YouTube is. I can be a pretty blunt, rough around the edges person, and sometimes because I'm monetized and stuff like that, I can't put some stuff on YouTube, and I don't talk about some stuff on YouTube because I really don't want to lose my monetization status. It took me a really long time to get to this point, and I would like to, you know, stay on good terms with YouTube. But I've been struggling on what I'm going to call this podcast. If you guys have any good ideas, you know, drop them in the comments, let me know. And maybe you could pick out the name for my next project. And if you guys know anyone who would be a good candidate for a guest on the show, let me know. I want to share stories. I want to hear about experiences. There's cool people everywhere. You don't have to go to prison to have a cool story. You don't have to go through a lot of hardship or a lot of adversity or really tough conditions to have a cool story. A lot of average people, everyday folks, have really, really cool things to say and real cool stories to tell and share. And I want to share those experiences with people. I want to hear them, and I want you guys to share that with me. So if you guys know some folks with some cool stories or people who would be willing to come on the show, let me know. And right now the podcast isn't live because I'm not set on the name yet. I'm not, you know, decided on it. I'm not exactly sure on the name. And I would like to record several episodes before I go live with it. That way, when you guys start listening to the podcast, you don't have to listen to one and then wait, you know, a week or two before you get the next episode. I want to have some content up, ready to go for you guys' listening pleasure. I feel like there was something else I wanted to say, but I can't think of it right now. So, in the meantime, thank you guys for stopping by the channel. I love you all. This has been another episode of From Prison to the Streets. I'm Eric. I will see you all later. Break these chains.